He died in a supermarket, not heroically, not protecting anyone. He was simply standing in a checkout line with a bag of buckwheat and a bottle of water because the radio said, "Don't panic. The situation is under control." And he didn't panic, and the situation turned out not to be under control. The bite was quick. He didn't even immediately understand what had happened. Then pain, then darkness, then nothing. And then a voice. Not human, not mechanical, just a voice. As if someone was reading a refrigerator manual aloud in an empty room. Storage system initialization. Host Kim Sanu, 28 years old, death recorded. Temporal anchor point, minus 14 months before the D0 event. Rollback complete. Welcome. Kim Sanu woke up in his apartment. The ceiling was the same. The crack at the right corner was the same. The smell of stale coffee from the kitchen was the same. He lay for a minute without moving. Then he raised his left hand, the very one that had been bitten, and looked at it. The skin was clean. No trace. The system flickered. Storage system activated. Greetings, host. Basic function. Personal interspatial storage. Capacity at start. 10 cubic meters. Restrictions. Cannot store living creatures. Cannot store water and liquids in open form. Everything else is allowed. Current storage balance? 0 items. Note. Storage expands provided that items with a total weight exceeding the current limit are stored for 72 hours. The principle, the more you store, the more you can store. Sanu sat on the bed and reread the text before his eyes. Storage. Not a combat system. Not levels and stats. Not the ability to kill zombies with bare hands or sense danger from a kilometer away. Storage. Like a warehouse worker's. He remembered his first life. How on the 3rd day of the apocalypse, people killed each other for a can of stewed meat. How on the 15th day, water became more valuable than gold. How on the 40th, he saw a group of 7 people, weapons, a car, whose supplies were destroyed by another group. Not because they were enemies, but because they had supplies. Supplies decided everything. Sanu slowly smiled. Maybe this is a combat system after all, just of a different kind. He got up, washed his face, made coffee, sat at the table with a sheet of paper and a pen. Wrote at the top, 14 months. Then began writing everything he remembered. D0 day, the first cases recorded in Busan. Not in Seoul. In Busan, at a port city, cargo ships, something came from the sea. He had 14 months. The first 3 months, the world is still normal. Nobody knows anything. From the 4th to the 8th, rumors, first cases, the government is silent. 9th month, the first outbreak in Incheon. Quarantine declared, the media says flu. 12th month, Seoul, panic, army in the streets. 13th month, the end of organized society. D0 day, everything. Sanu looked at the list. 14 months is a lot. It's very much if you know what to buy. System notification. Host has studied the temporal event map. Additional interface unlocked. Storage catalog. Note. The system records all items placed in storage. Each item receives a card, name, weight, volume, date placed, expiration date, if applicable. Catalog search, instant. Additionally, items in storage are not subject to the effects of time. Bread placed today will be just as fresh a year from now. Sanu reread the last line. Time inside the storage is stopped. He sat quietly for about 30 seconds. Then picked up the pen and wrote one word under the list, antibiotics. The first week he simply walked around pharmacies, not buying everything in sight, and that attracts attention. Taking a little bit at different places, amoxicillin, ciprofloxacin, metronidazole, blood pressure medications. In his first life, people died from heart attacks because enalapril ran out. Insulin, 4 packages, then 4 more at a different pharmacy. The system was silent while he did this, just registering. On the 8th day, it flickered. Storage report. Current volume of contents, 4.7 cubic meters. Total weight, 312 kilograms. Medications, 847 units. Food, 0. Tools, 0. Other, 0. Achievement unlocked. Pharmacist. Bonus, plus 2 cubic meters to storage capacity. Current capacity, 12 cubic meters. Sanu looked at the line food. 0. Correct. First, things that don't spoil without storage. Then everything else. He opened his laptop, started studying wholesale bases, not retail stores, wholesale warehouses. They sold by the case. Nobody looked sideways at a person taking 20 kilograms of buckwheat at a time. The problem was one thing: money. He worked at a logistics company. Average salary. Savings. 0. The loan for the laptop hadn't been paid off yet. Sanu looked at the ceiling. In his first life, money lost its value on the 13th month. Before that, it worked, which meant he had 13 months to convert money into items. But there was no money, which meant money was needed. He opened a new sheet, wrote how to earn quickly and legally in 6 months. He sat over that sheet for a long time, then wrote, 1. I know what will happen to the stock market in 13 months. He wasn't a financier. He didn't understand stocks at all. But he remembered some things from his first life. Random fragments of news he had seen before the apocalypse. Pharmaceutical companies that soared when quarantine was announced. Logistics companies that collapsed. One manufacturer of protective suits, a small company in Daegu, whose shares grew 140 times in 3 months. He remembered the name. He had memorized it because he saw an advertisement for their products in the supermarket on the day he was bitten. Sanu found a brokerage app, opened an account, deposited all his savings, 840,000 won, a laughable sum, bought shares in Hanguk Protective Solutions, then closed the app and went to the wholesale base for buckwheat. A month later, the system delivered its first surprise. Sanu was standing at a building market looking at generators. Expensive, but in his first life, a generator was literally currency. One generator equals negotiations with any group. He picked one up, estimated 45 kilograms, placed it in storage. Placed. The system flickered differently than usual. Storage. New function unlocked. Total weight of stored items reached 500 kilograms. Unlocked. Sorting. From now on, the storage automatically groups items by category. Categories are created by the host freely. Search, instant. Retrieval, instant. Additionally, quick access function unlocked. 5 items can be assigned to hotkey positions, retrieved without opening the interface with a single gesture. Sanu assigned to hotkey positions: knife, flashlight, first aid kit, 20 meters of rope, lighter. Then thought about it. Removed the lighter, added a folding axe, then thought again and removed the axe. Added a portable radio station. In his first life, information killed faster than zombies. Not knowing what was happening in the next block meant death. On the 3rd month, shares of Hanguk Protective Solutions grew by 340%. Sanu sold half, put 1,900,000 won into the account, went to the wholesale base. The clerk, a mustachioed man of about 50, watched as Sanu loaded case after case into storage. Not into a car, just into the air, the items disappeared. "Where are you putting all this?" the clerk asked. Sanu turned around. "Excuse me? You've already put 40 cases of canned goods away. You have neither a car nor a cart." Sanu looked at him for a second. "Truck around the corner," he said. "The driver will bring it over himself." The clerk looked skeptical, but didn't argue. The money was real. You need to be more careful. By the 6th month, the storage looked like this. Storage catalog summary. Current capacity, 47 cubic meters. Total weight of contents, 3,840 kilograms. Medications, 2,341 units. Broad-spectrum antibiotics, 340 courses. Painkillers, 890 packages. Insulin, 48 packages, frozen upon placement, preserved. Bandaging materials, 220 sets. Basic surgical instrument sets, 4 kits. Food, 1,840 kilograms. Grains, buckwheat, rice, oats, 620 kilograms. Canned goods, meat, fish, vegetables, 890 kilograms. Dried fruits and nuts, 180 kilograms. Salt, 150 kilograms. Tools and equipment, 340 kilograms. Generators, 3 units, gasoline, 3 kilowatts each. Fuel in canisters, 200 liters. Hand tools, 1 complete set. Rope, 300 meters. Weapons, 0 units. The last line blinked red. Sanu looked at it. Weapons. In his first life, he had never had weapons. He died with a bag of buckwheat in his hands in a supermarket. Unarmed, unprepared, bewildered. This time it's a different story. But weapons in Korea are not a shop around the corner. It's permits, checks, waiting. Firearms are almost impossible to obtain legally in a reasonable time. So, not firearms. Sanu opened the browser, started studying. His name was Pak Doyeon, and he was a problem. Not an enemy, just a co-worker who for some reason had decided that he and Sanu were friends. He'd come to the desk for coffee, tell stories about his personal life. Once borrowed 50,000 won and forgot to return it. In his first life, Sanu remembered him vaguely. They worked in the same office, saw each other every day, and then on the 13th month, Doyeon came to him on the rooftop of a shopping center where Sanu was hiding and asked for food, and Sanu gave it to him. And 3 days later, Doyeon led a group of looters back with him because he had talked too much. Not out of malice. He just couldn't keep his mouth shut. "Sanuya," said Doyeon, approaching the desk with a mug of someone else's coffee. "You've been acting strange lately. Going somewhere all the time. A girl?" "No." "Investments? I heard you bought some stocks." Sanu raised his eyes. "How do you know?" "Chue from accounting says you asked him about a broker." Doyeon sat on the edge of the desk. "What did you buy? Maybe you'll give me some advice too." Hanguk Protective Solutions grew 340%. If I tell him he'll buy, if he buys, he'll tell everyone. If he tells everyone, someone will start digging. Why is a small company in Daegu suddenly interesting to people from Seoul? "Nothing interesting," said Sanu. "Bought and already sold. Small profit." "Well, fair enough," said Doyeon without offense. "Listen, can you submit the report for me? I'm leaving early. A date." "No." "But Sanu." "No." Doyeon left. Sanu watched him go. Storing supplies is easy, keeping a secret is harder. The system flickered that evening. System notification. Recorded, host intentionally restricted the spread of information about his actions. Skill unlocked, storage confidentiality. From now on, the storage is invisible to outside observers. The process of placing and retrieving items is not registered by human vision or cameras. Note: this skill is unlocked upon the host's first conscious act of information security. You managed quickly. Sanu reread it. Cameras. He remembered the mustachioed clerk at the wholesale base, remembered that there were security cameras there. Cold sweat. He grabbed his phone, found the base's number, called. "Good evening. I was at your place today buying canned goods. I wanted to clarify, do you record from cameras?" "Yes, of course, stored for 7 days." "I see, thank you." He hung up. He looked at the date the skill was unlocked. Today. Cameras today no longer record it. What was before today? They did record. 7 days stored. Sanu closed his eyes for a few seconds, then got up, got dressed, left the apartment. He didn't hack cameras or bribe anyone. He simply came to the base the next morning and bought a lot of canned goods again. This time through the register with a long receipt, with large bags, with a cart, with a rented car, and asked the merchandise inspector to help load up. And while the inspector helped, they chatted, and Sanu asked if he could become a regular wholesale client, and signed up for a loyalty card in his own name. Now in the camera archive, there was a person who came by car and legally bought a lot of canned goods. No magic. The old recordings, 7 days, would simply overwrite themselves. System notification. Achievement unlocked. Foresight. Host eliminated a potential security threat without the use of force and without breaking the law. Bonus, plus 3 cubic meters to storage capacity. By the 8th month, Sanu had quit his job. The stocks had brought enough, not millions, but enough. He sold everything 2 months before the quarantine announcement in Incheon was declared. More precisely, 8 days before. Because he remembered. As soon as quarantine was announced, the market would freeze, banks would freeze transfers, cards would stop working. Cash, 8,400,000 won, lay in storage. Money inside doesn't age, doesn't burn, doesn't get wet, doesn't get lost. The storage by this time looked different. Storage catalog summary, month 8. Current capacity, 89 cubic meters. Total weight of contents, 7,210 kilograms. Medications, 4,700 units. Food, 3,800 kilograms. Estimated 15 people per 2 years. Tools and equipment, 890 kilograms. Weapons, 12 units, crossbows 4, bows 3, tactical knives 5. Seeds, 140 packets, vegetables, greens, grains, long-term storage. Books, 340 units, medicine, agronomy, construction, electrical work. Cash, 8,400,000 won. New category unlocked. The last line blinked. Storage. New function. Total weight of stored items reached 5,000 kilograms. Unlocked transfer. From now on, the host can transfer items from storage directly into another person's hands without intermediate retrieval. Additionally, contractual storage function unlocked. With another person's consent, the host can accept an item for storage from them and return it upon request. Sanu reread the second paragraph 3 times. Contractual storage. I can accept things for storage from other people. He sat quietly. In his first life, people died because they couldn't protect what they had. Hid things under beds, they were found. Buried them, forgot the location, carried them on themselves, got robbed. If I can store other people's things, then I have something no one else in this world has, a guarantee. He met the quarantine announcement at a small cafe near his house. A TV above the counter, breaking news, serious faces, a map with a red zone around Incheon. A viral outbreak, a new type of flu. The situation is under control. The cafe owner, a woman of about 60 whom everyone called Halmoni, watched the screen and said nothing. Are you scared? Sanu asked. Saw something like this in 2003, she said. And in 2015, it will pass. Sanu looked at the red zone on the map. It won't pass. Halmoni, he said. Are you here alone? My son is in Busan, calls rarely. I see. A pause. If things get really bad, come to me. 3rd floor, apartment 307. Halmoni looked at him. Why? Because I have food. A lot of food. A long silence. Did you prepare for this? Sanu finished his coffee. I just like to be prepared. The next 3 months he spent money at an accelerating pace. Not just food and medications, now he was thinking about people. In his first life, survival happened in groups. Loners died almost universally. The question wasn't, is a group needed? The question was, who would be in it? You can't just gather the first people you meet. You need people with skills. A doctor, a mechanic, an agronomist, someone who can fight, someone who can negotiate. He began making a list. Not names, professions, then names. A doctor. In his first life, his group had one doctor, a pediatrician. A good person, useless in extreme surgery. The child she was treating survived. The adult with a shrapnel wound in his stomach did not. Needed a surgeon or a trauma specialist. He found one by chance, in a pharmacy line. A man of about 45 was confidently advising the pharmacist about some medication, and the pharmacist was listening. Then an argument at the register. The man was explaining that the antibiotic a stranger woman was buying wasn't right for her, that she needed a different one. The woman listened and bought a different one. Sanu approached the man at the exit. Are you a doctor? A surgeon, why? Can I ask you one question? His name was Cheol. He worked at a city hospital in surgery, 20 years of experience. Lived alone, divorced 3 years ago. Spoke directly, looked tired. Sanu offered him coffee. They sat for an hour. Sanu didn't tell him about the system, didn't tell him about his first life. Just said he thought there would be an apocalypse, not tomorrow, in a few months, and that he was preparing, and that he needed a person with medical knowledge. Cheol looked at him for a long time. Are you crazy? Possibly. How many people do you have? So far, one, me. Silence. Show me what you have. If it's real, we'll talk. Sanu showed him the storage. Not everything, just the medications. He pulled a set of surgical instruments out of thin air. Then antibiotics. Then insulin that had been in storage since the first month and looked brand new. Cheol took the insulin, looked at the production date. This is from 6 months ago. Yes. Insulin spoils in a few hours if stored incorrectly. I know. It looks perfect. I know. A long silence. How? Inside the storage, time doesn't pass. Cheol looked at the vial, then at Sanu. You say this completely calmly. I got used to it. The doctor agreed at their 3rd meeting. Not because he fully believed, but because by the 3rd meeting another block had been closed in Incheon, and the news had started using the word evacuation. 13th month. The last 3 weeks before the end. Sanu's group had 7 people. Cheol, surgeon. quiet, reliable, asking no unnecessary questions. Halmoni, the cafe owner, came on her own, as she had said, brought her neighbor with her. The neighbor, Lee Yuri, 34 years old, agronomist, worked in a greenhouse. When Sanu said he had 140 packets of seeds, she simply cried, without explanation. Jang Min-soo, mechanic from the car service across the street, once saw Sanu pull a generator out of thin air, didn't run, walked up and asked, "Do you have spare parts for a Honda in there?" From then on, he helped with machinery in exchange for a place in the group. Kim Ji-soo, student, 22 years old, the only one in the group who could shoot a bow. University archery section. She found them herself, saw an announcement Sanu had posted on the board at the neighborhood center. The announcement read, "Looking for people with practical skills, strictly not for panic." And the last one, Oh Seung-ho, 50 years old, former military, bank security guard. Quiet, broad-shouldered, viewed the world with professional distrust. Sanu told them everything. Not about his first life, about the system, about the supplies, about the plan. Seung-ho listened without interrupting, then said, "Where will we be based?" "There's a facility," said Sanu. He found the facility on the 10th month. A former warehouse complex on the outskirts. 3 buildings, a fence, its own artesian well, a diesel power station. The owner had gone bankrupt. The complex had been idle for a year. Sanu leased it for a laughable amount. The owner was glad to have anyone at all. In his first life, good locations were found by others. Those who thought ahead occupied them. We came to someone else's place. Now it's ours. The system flickered on the night between the 13th and 14th months. System notification. Final. Host has reached D-0 day -1 day. Final storage status. Capacity. 214 cubic meters. Total weight of contents. 18,400 kilograms. Achievement unlocked. Keeper. Final function unlocked. Expanded contractual storage. From now on, the host can accept not only items for storage, but also documents, data, and obligations. An agreement placed in storage cannot be lost, destroyed, or disputed. It exists as long as the storage exists. In other words, the host can store the word given by people. Sanu sat alone in the main warehouse building. Quiet outside. Tomorrow morning, the radio will say that the first cases have been recorded in Seoul. Then the radio will fall silent. He looked at the final line. To store the word given by people, not magic, not a weapon, not the ability to kill, simply to store. In a world where everything collapses, everything burns, everyone betrays, to be the one who stores. That is a strange superpower, but perhaps it is exactly what is needed. Quiet outside in 23 hours of not quiet. He lay down to sleep at 23:47. At 23:58, the phone received an SMS from Pa Doyon. "Sanu ya, I heard you have some kind of warehouse. Can you take me and Heejeon and the baby? Things are getting a bit scary, Lolel." Sanu looked at the message for a long time. Doyon. Who told the looters about me? Whom I forgave in my first life and paid the price. 3 dots. Doyon is writing more. Well, you're my friend. Sanu placed the phone on the table face down, closed his eyes, opened them, wrote, "Come, just you alone. We'll take Heejeon and the child, but you live by our rules. Break them, you leave. Agreed?" A long pause. Yes. Sanu put the phone away. An agreement placed in storage cannot be disputed. He opened the interface, created a new card. Agreement. Pak Doyon. Terms attached. Date, D-0 -1 day. Placed it in storage. Closed his eyes. Tomorrow a different world begins. I am ready. The radio fell silent at 5:47 in the morning. Not static, not interference, just silence. Music was playing, then it cut off mid-word, and that was that. Sanu sat by the radio and stared at it for another 2 minutes after it fell silent. Then turned around. 7 people were looking at him. Halmoni held a mug of tea with both hands. Lee Yuri, the agronomist, looked out the window. Cheol, the surgeon, was already putting on gloves, unhurriedly, methodically, as before an operation. Jang Min-soo, the mechanic, was spinning a wrench in his fingers. Kim Ji-soo, the student with the bow, sat upright, shoulders lowered, face calm. Oh Seung-ho, the former military man, stood at the door and looked out into the street through a gap in the shutter. Doyon sat in the corner and stared at his phone. There was no signal anymore. He was just looking at the screen as if waiting for it to come back. It started, said Sanu. Nobody asked what started. They all knew. He had been telling them for 3 weeks. The gates, said Sung-ho. Already closed. Chain and lock. The lock won't hold, said Sung-ho. I know, that's why. Sanu opened storage, pulled out 3 rolls of barbed wire, then metal staples, then tools. Min-soo, he said, you know what to do. The mechanic caught the roll of wire mid-air, nodded. An hour's work. You have 40 minutes. System notification. D0 day recorded. Active storage mode enabled. New function unlocked. Content scanner. The host can instantly check for any item in storage without opening the full catalog. Voice or mental query. Instant response. How many crossbow bolts do I have? 412 units. Section Weapons, Shelf 3. How much water? 180 liters in sealed containers. Section Food. Bandaging materials? 220 sets, plus 14 individual first aid kits. Sanu dismissed the interface. Outside, the first sound. Distant. Like the hum of a crowd at a stadium, only without rhythm. Just a hum. Low, constant, approaching. Lee Yuri stepped back from the window. There are a lot of them, she said quietly. Yes, said Sanu. How many? He went to the window, looked. The street was empty, but the hum was growing. The first horde usually comes in a wave, not organized. Just toward wherever there's sound or movement. You say usually, said Cheol. Yes? How do you know what usually means? A pause. Intuition, said Sanu. The surgeon looked at him with the expression of someone who understands they're not being told everything, but didn't press. What should we do? He said. Nothing for now. Wait. Watch. Don't make noise. They came at 9:23. Not from the street, from the next block. Sanu first heard breaking glass, a scream, then silence, then the hum again. Closer. He stood on the roof of the main building with binoculars. He counted 73 before he stopped counting. In my first life, I saw hordes. But back then I was looking at them from below, from the street, running. From above, it's different. From above, you can see that they're not monsters. They just walk. Without purpose. Without plan. Just movement. The key is not to give them a target. Don't make noise. Don't move outside. He came down. 7 faces looked at him. 70 odd. Moving along the main street. Our fence is metal, 3 meters. If we don't make noise, they'll pass by. And if we do make noise? Asked Doyon. Then they won't. Silence. How long can we wait like this? Asked Kim Jisoo. The first weeks the hordes are large, then they scatter. Then 1s, 2s, 10s. A pause. The first weeks we hide. Sung-ho nodded. He understood the logic. And after? After that I'll tell you. The horde passed by at 9:41. The hum grew, then peaked, then quieter, quieter, quieter. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Doyon sneezed. Everyone turned to him with identical expressions. Doyon covered his nose with his hand, eyes wide with horror. The hum outside didn't change. It continued to recede. An exhale. All 7 people at once. On the 4th day came the first encounter. Not a horde, a lone one. It had slipped through a gap in the fence that Min-soo hadn't noticed during inspection. A rusty section in the far corner, rotted at the base. Sanu saw it first through the 2nd floor window. A former man in a torn office suit, slowly walking across the yard. A lone one isn't dangerous if it's quiet. The problem was that Lee Yuri was at that moment walking from the warehouse back to the building with a box of seeds in her hands. She didn't see it. It was walking toward her. Distance, 20 meters, then 15. Sanu was already running down the stairs. He opened storage on the run. Mental query. Tactical knife. Quick access. A handle appeared in his palm. He stepped out into the yard quietly. Side door, no creak. Min-soo had oiled the hinges on the 2nd day. Yuri turned around, saw the zombie 5 meters away, opened her mouth. Don't scream, said Sanu. Not shouted. Said, quietly, firmly. She closed her mouth. The zombie reacted to the sound, turned its head. Sanu was already beside it. In my first life, I didn't know how to do this. A knife isn't my thing. I never fought. But I remembered very clearly how others did it. Quickly, without unnecessary movements, from behind the base of the skull. The knife went in precisely. The zombie fell without a sound. Yuri looked at him, then at the zombie, then back at him. You know how to do that. Learning, said Sanu. System notification. Host has made the first combat use of an item from storage. Unlocked, combat catalog. From now on, items in the weapons category are separated into a dedicated interface. Weapon retrieval time from storage, 0.3 seconds. Additionally unlocked, equipment inventory. The host can wear items from storage without retrieval. They will appear directly on the body. Time, 0.8 seconds. Sanu put away the knife, helped Yuri pick up the box of seeds. The gap in the fence, he said. Tell Minsu. I will. A pause. Thank you, she said. Don't go alone. The 12th day brought a problem, not a lone one, not a dozen. Sanu counted from the roof, stopped at 200. They kept coming, not a horde, a flood. The entire street was solid movement, slow, mindless, endless. Something had driven them. Maybe a fire in another block, maybe an explosion. They walked wherever they walked, straight toward the fence. One fence won't hold. 2 meters of barbed wire on top of 3 meters of metal won't hold. If they press with mass, they'll simply knock it over. Sanu came down, gathered everyone. We need to go inside and stay quiet, Sungho began. It won't help. There are too many of them. They'll reach the fence by sheer momentum. Then, we need to lead them away. Silence. How? Asked Minsu. Sanu opened storage, pulled out 3 items. First, a portable speaker, Bluetooth, charged. Second, a phone with preloaded audio files. No network, offline. Third, a drone. Small, quiet, with a mount on the bottom. Kim Ji-Zoo looked at the drone. You want to hang the speaker under the drone, launch it in the other direction. The speaker plays. They follow the sound. Will it work? Asked Doyon. Once saw it done, said Sanu. He didn't clarify where he'd seen it. It'll work. The question is how long the drone's battery will last. 20 minutes maximum, said Minsu, already holding the drone, already turning it over, already assessing it. The mount is weak. The speaker needs to be light. It weighs 340 grams. Fine. They launched it from the roof at 14:07. The drone moved east quietly at low altitude. The speaker beneath it was playing something heavy, loud, with a beat. Sanu had chosen deliberately, not a voice, not a scream, just rhythm. Rhythm attracted them better. From the roof, it was visible how the stream slowed. Then heads began to turn. Then the front rows changed direction. They're moving, said Seung-ho quietly. It went slowly, then faster, and those in the back were pushing those in front. The front ones were turning, the back ones were pulling in. 8 minutes later, the street in front of the fence started to clear. 14 minutes, empty. On the 17th minute, the drone landed. The battery died 3 blocks to the east. The speaker went silent. Now they're over there, said Sanu, and not our problem. Silence. You prepared this specifically, said Cheol. Not a question. Yes? When? 8 months ago. The surgeon looked at him with the expression Sanu was already beginning to recognize. A mix of respect and slight fear. How much more do you have like that? Sanu thought about it. A lot. System notification. Achievement unlocked. Tactician. Host applied a non-lethal tactical solution against a group of opponents numbering 200+ units without direct contact and without losses. Bonus, plus 8 cubic meters to storage capacity. Additionally unlocked, marking function. The host can mark up to 10 items in storage as tactical. Tactical items are retrieved simultaneously with a single gesture. Sanu marked as tactical. Drone, backup. 3 speakers, signal flares, smoke grenades, 4 pieces. Canisters of construction foam. Kim Jisoo looked over his shoulder at the interface. Construction foam? Sets in 40 seconds. If you fill a doorframe, no one gets through. Smart. Not my idea. Saw it online before the apocalypse. The article was called 10 Unusual Uses for Mounting Foam. Jisoo laughed. First time in 12 days. On the 23rd day, the neighbors ran out of food. They came not with weapons, just knocked on the gate. A family, a man, a woman, a girl of about 8. The man held nothing in his hands. Empty hands, intentionally visible. Sanu opened the gate. Minsu stood beside him with a crowbar. Seongho behind, silently. "We have nothing," said the man. 3 days nothing. The child... Sanu looked at the girl, then at the man, then back at the girl. "In my first life, I wouldn't have opened. In my first life, I saw how that kind of thing ends. A trap, a distraction, others coming from behind. But the girl, and the empty hands." "Come in," he said. Seongho tensed behind him. Sanu felt it without turning around. "Seongho, it's fine." They fed them. Not a lot. Enough. Canned goods, rice, water. The girl's name was Ariam. She ate quietly and quickly, the way a child eats who hasn't eaten for several days. Without ceremony, without embarrassment, just ate. The man watched this and said nothing. "Will you stay?" asked Sanu. "That's..." The man raised his gaze. "That's allowed?" "There's a condition." "What condition?" Sanu took a small sheet of paper from storage, wrote several lines by hand, held it out. The man read it, raised his gaze. "This is a contract?" "Yes. A group member is obligated not to take from the common supplies without asking, not to reveal the location of the base to outsiders, to carry out work within their ability. Violation, exclusion from the group." The man looked at the sheet. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely." "All right, I'll sign." "All right, I'll..." Sanu took the sheet, placed it in storage. Contract number 8 placed. Lee Dojin, Park Seonyi, Lee Ariam, Guardian, Lee Dojin. Terms recorded, no violations. By the 23rd day, the group had 11 people. By the 30th, 17. On the 23rd day, something else also happened. Minsu came to Sanu in the evening with a serious face. "We need fuel." "I know." "How much is left?" 10 days on the generators. Maybe 12 if we're careful." Sanu nodded, opened storage, checked. "Fuel in canisters?" 200 liters. Section Tools, row 2. Additionally, diesel? 0. 200 liters of gasoline, he said. "The generators run on diesel." "Yes?" Minsu looked at him. "Which means we need a run." Silence. The first excursion outside. Here it is. Sanu prepared the run for 2 days. Not impulsively, methodically, like a warehouse worker preparing an inventory. Objective, a gas station 4 blocks to the north. In his first life, he walked past it every day on the way to work. Knew the layout. Knew where the pump station was. Knew that the underground reservoirs were full. The station had been closed for repairs 3 days before D0. They hadn't had time to drain the reserves yet. Route. Through yards, not streets. Fences, alleys, quietly. Group composition, 3. More means louder. Sanu, Seongho, Minsu. Combat catalog, issued equipment. Sanu, tactical knife, quick access, compact crossbow, Kuzbolton magazine, smoke grenade Karen Coxey, construction foam Karen Yuxi, radio, closed channel. Seongho, tactical knife ×2, standard crossbow, 12 bolts, rope 20 meters, headlamp flashlight. Minsu, crowbar, his own, not from storage. He's attached to it. Folding knife, empty canisters ×8 from storage, manual fuel transfer pump. Seongho looked at his equipment. Crossbow, quiet. Doesn't attract others. "I don't know how to shoot it." "You'll learn. Did you have experience with firearms?" "Yes." "The principle is similar. Sight, trigger, just slower to reload." "How much slower?" 15 seconds. Against a zombie, 15 seconds is a lot. "So don't miss." Seongho looked at him. "I like you, Kim Sanu." They left at 5:30 as dawn was just beginning. Gray light, cold air, silence so complete you could hear your own breathing. Sanu opened the gate quietly. Minsu had oiled the hinges a week ago, looked out. The alley was empty. "Good, let's go." First 2 blocks without contact. Through yards, along walls, not lifting their feet, gliding, not stomping. Seongho moved like a professional. Sanu caught glimpses of this out of the corner of his eye, noted it. Military bearing, soft step. Minsu was worse, a mechanic, used to noise. Sanu placed him in the middle. 3rd block, a problem. 2 by a trash bin. They were sitting, if you could call it that, leaned against the wall, heads down. Not sleeping? Zombies don't sleep. just standing in standby mode. Standard behaviors, without sound or movement, they're nearly motionless. Sanu raised his hand. Stop. Showed 2 on the left. Distance 10 meters. Go around right, through the arch. Seung-ho nodded. Minzu, too, gripped the crowbar tight. They began moving around slowly, in an arc. 7 meters. 5. Minsu's foot kicked a tin can. Sound, short, metallic, not loud. Heads at the bin lifted. Here it is. No words, a gesture. Sanu showed his hand downward. Stop, don't move. The zombies looked in their direction, turned their heads slowly. Their hearing is good. Eyesight worse, especially in shifting twilight. 30 seconds. Heads drop back down. Exhale. The gas station appeared around the corner at 6:04. Sanu recognized it. Yellow sign, 4 pumps, glass cashier's booth. Glass intact, meaning either no one had broken in or they'd already gone. 6 zombies on the premises. Sanu counted methodically, without panic. 2 by the pumps. 1 at the entrance to the booth. 3 around the corner of the building, partially visible. 6 is too many for quiet work. Need time, said Minsu quietly. The pump is loud, 5 minutes minimum. I know, which means we need to clear the ones nearby, quietly, and lead the rest away. Sanu pulled from storage, instantly 0.3 seconds. A small object, a rubber ball, hard. Seung-ho looked at the ball. You're serious. Physics works everywhere, said Sanu. Those 3 around the corner, if you throw it there, behind the building, they'll go look. We're left with 3. 3 for us. Yes? Crossbows? Crossbows. Sanu raised his. Seung-ho raised his. The 1 at the entrance first, then the 2 at the pumps. 1 at a time. I take the entrance, you take the left pump. Then both take the right. Understood. A pause. Don't miss. You either. The ball flew around the corner of the building. A dull thud against the wall. The 3 around the corner reacted, turned. Slowly but steadily walked that way. Sanu and Seung-ho rose simultaneously. The 1 at the entrance, in profile, 10 meters. Sanu leveled his sight. Exhale, trigger. The bolt entered the temple. The zombie fell without a sound. Seung-ho, at the left pump. Shot, bolt in the neck. The zombie fell, but not immediately. Swayed for 3 seconds, bumped the pump with its shoulder. A metallic sound. The 3rd at the right pump turned its head toward the sound. Sanu was already reloading. 15 seconds. The zombie was moving toward them. 8 seconds, 10 meters. Seung-ho threw his knife. Didn't hurl it, struck the handle against the asphalt to the side of the zombie. Sound? The zombie turned. 15 seconds elapsed. Sanu fired. Minsu was already at the pump cover, his own tools, familiar hands. 60 seconds and the cover was open. Pump, he said. Sanu pulled it from storage, passed it over. The pump had an electric drive, quiet, almost noiseless. Minsu connected the hose. 3 minutes, he said. Make it 2. Can't cheat physics. Then 3, we cover. The 3 around the corner came back after a minute and a half. They found nothing. The ball was lying by the wall, not interesting. But they came back, and now they were moving toward the main area. Sanu saw them. 3. 2 of us, Seung-ho and me. Crossbows reloaded, but behind him the pump could be heard. Minsu was working steadily, quickly. Can't distract him. We take 2, the 3rd gets smoke, said Sanu. Seung-ho nodded. 2 shots nearly simultaneous. Both hit. 2 fell. The 3rd heard the sound of falling, turned to the bodies, then toward them. Sanu took out a smoke grenade, lit it, threw it between them and the zombie. Dense white smoke, fast, thick. The zombie stopped. Smoke is not sound, not movement. They don't understand smoke, it just stood there. 3 minutes, said Minsu from behind. We're leaving, said Sanu. They walked back with 8 full canisters. Minsu carried 4, Sanu 2, Seung-ho 2, while keeping the crossbow ready. They were silent until the very gate. Only when they were inside did Minsu set down the canisters, sit directly on the ground, and for a while simply breathed. Done, he said finally. Done, Sanu agreed. Seung-ho looked at him. Have you done this before? No. You moved like you had. Sanu put the crossbow into storage. I thought very hard about how it would go. Seung-ho paused. That's usually not enough. I know. We just got lucky in a couple of places. Yes. A pause. But you made the right decisions. System notification. First external operation completed. Group losses, 0. Resources obtained. Achievement unlocked, Quartermaster. Bonus, plus 10 cubic meters to storage capacity. New function unlocked, Reserve. The host can create a reserve cache, a hidden storage at a specific point in space. Items from the cache are accessible only to the host. Maximum 3 caches simultaneously. Volume of each, up to 5 cubic meters. Sanu reread it. Caches. Hiding spots that cannot be found, robbed, or destroyed. If the base is taken, I'll have reserves outside. If I'm captured, supplies will remain for the group. If I die, he stopped on that thought. If I die, the storage disappears with me. Everything inside disappears. 214 cubic meters, 18 tons of supplies, food, medications, tools, everything. If I die, everyone dies. This was not a new thought. But only now, after the run, after the bolt passed 10 centimeters from someone's head and could have passed through him, only now did it become real. I cannot die. Not because I want to live, because they won't survive without me. That is both strength and weakness at the same time. The horde came at night. Not by chance, they were drawn by a fire. 3 blocks to the west, a building was burning. Sanu saw the glow from the roof. Which meant someone alive was there, which meant noise, which meant they were first heading that way. But the fire went out, and they moved further, and further in their direction. Seung-ho spotted it. He was on roof watch. Came to Sanu at 2:17 at night. A lot. How many? Didn't count, more than last time. Sanu got up, went to the roof, looked. In my first life, we couldn't stop a horde like this. The street alive. Movement, hum, solid. He counted. The front rows came about 150 meters to the fence. Speed, slow but constant, 20 minutes. How many people do we have right now? 17. Of those 6 combat ready, maybe 7. Seung-ho, Min-soo, Ji-soo, definitely. Do-jun, I watched how he moves, military or athlete. Who else? Lee Arayum. She's 8 years old. She's fast. She can run messages between posts. Sanu looked at him. All right, Lee Arayum, runner. The rest, shelter, second floor, quiet. And us? Sanu looked at the horde. We need them to pass by, like last time. The drone? 1 drone. Battery 20 minutes. That's enough to lead away the front rows, but the horde is big. The back rows won't react to the sound at the front. They'll come straight through. A pause. Which means we need 2 distractions, said Seung-ho. 3. The next 15 minutes, Sanu distributed from storage. Quickly, without extra words, pulled out, handed over, explained in 10 seconds. Seung-ho, drone with speaker. Route north, pull the front rows away. Min-soo, signal flare. Position, roof of the neighboring building across the yard. When the back rows come within 50 meters, launch it east. Fire and sound, they'll turn. Ji-soo, bow. Position, corner of the roof. Don't shoot into the horde. Shoot bolts with tied firecrackers into the ground in front of the side street. Cut off the flank if anyone breaks away. Do-jun with Sanu at the main gate. Second line of defense if everything goes wrong. Arium runs between posts. Signal by hand, fist, stop, open palm, act. She's 8 years old and she understands military signals better than some adults. 14 minutes to contact. Seung-ho launched the drone, the speaker beneath it, heavy beat, loud. The drone moved north. 40 seconds later, the front rows of the horde began to turn. Good. Half of the first wave, that way, 10 minutes. The remaining part of the first wave kept moving. The fence, 50 meters away. Min-soo. Arium ran across the roof to the neighboring building. Showed open palm. The flare went east, bright with a whistle with a bang 3 seconds later. The back rows reacted, sound and light, powerfully. They turned, but the first wave was already at the fence, 30 meters. Ji-soo, said Sanu. She had already drawn the bow. First bolt with a firecracker toward the side street. A bang. Those who had broken off to the left turned back. Second bolt, right flank. A bang. Those who were coming in from the side stopped. Good. But the center kept moving, 20 meters to the fence. Sanu, said Do-jun beside him. I see. Sanu opened storage. tactical items to keep with a single gesture. Pulled out the last thing he had in reserve, 4 canisters of construction foam, and something else. "Help me," he said to Dojin. They climbed up the fence from the inside using a support. Mintsu had welded a ladder from pipes back in the second week. 10 meters to the horde, too close, but necessary. Sanu looked down at the front rows. Slow, not running. That's important, they're not running. He pulled out not the foam. He pulled out a hose, long, flexible, and connected it to a canister of compressed air from storage. At the end of the hose, a nozzle, not a weapon, a saline solution. Concentrated, 500 grams of salt per liter of water. In the eyes, not lethal, but a reaction. Disorientation. They stopped. "This works?" asked Dojin. "Don't know. First time trying." You say that very calmly. No time to be nervous. The nozzle went in a wide sweep across the front row. 5 meters, 6, 7. The front ones stopped. They shook their heads, didn't move forward. Those behind were pressing, but the front ones created a jam. Those who had stopped were blocking the rest. 30 seconds. A minute. Pressure from behind. The horde began spreading sideways along the street. Not toward the fence, to the sides. Path of least resistance. Another minute. The stream began to shift. 3 minutes. The front rows moved onto the side street. The rest followed. 5 minutes. The street in front of the fence was clearing. 8, empty. Sanu climbed down from the fence, sat directly on the ground. His hands were shaking slightly. He looked at them, then clenched them into fists. Dojin stood beside him. That was improvisation. Yes. With salt water. Yes. That was... A pause. That was either genius or madness, I can't decide. Sometimes the difference is small. Ariam came running from the roof, quick, light. Stood in front of Sanu, looked at him seriously. "Uncle Sanu." "Yes?" "Did they leave?" "They left." "Good." She turned around. "I'll tell Mom." And ran off. System notification. Achievement unlocked, Improviser. Host applied an unconventional tactical method using a non-lethal means against a horde numbering 300 plus units. Bonus plus 15 cubic meters to storage capacity. New function unlocked, Supply Analysis. The host receives a weekly report on supply depletion with a 30/60/90-day forecast. The forecast accounts for the current group composition. The first report came immediately. Supply Analysis. Report number 1. Group 17 people. Current food supplies 3,800 kilograms. Forecast at current consumption. 30 days 3,400 kilograms minus 400 kilograms. 60 days 3,000 kilograms. 90 days 2,600 kilograms. Depletion at 17 people, approximately 570 days, approximately 19 months. System recommendation: if the group grows to 30 people, the supply will shrink to 10 months. Priority: own food production. Lee Yuri, agronomist. Seeds 140 packets. Status: unused. Sanu looked at the last line. Unused. He got up, went to find Yuri, found her in a storage room. She was sitting with seed packets, sorting through them, reading labels by the light of a flashlight. Yuri. She looked up. "We need a greenhouse," said Sanu. "Do you know how to build one?" She looked at him for a second, then stood up, took a notebook from the shelf. "I need the dimensions of a free space, a list of available materials, and a water source. Artesian well in the yard. Space, second warehouse, 20 by 15 meters. Materials, tell me what you need, I'll get it. Polycarbonate for the roof, steel profile, drip irrigation systems if available." "There are," said Sanu. She stopped. "Where did you get a drip irrigation system from?" 8 months ago, an article on the internet called "How to Grow Food in Any Conditions." Yuri looked at him. "You read agronomic articles." "I read everything that seemed important." A long silence. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow," said Sanu. "From dawn." The first sprouts appeared on the 60th day. Yuri stood over them, hands folded, looking silently, then turned to Sanu. "Radishes," she said. "In 3 weeks it'll be edible." "Good. Tomatoes in 2 months." "Even better." Aryam came running. She always ran, never walked, and stopped at the sprouts. Lay on her stomach right on the greenhouse floor, looked at them up close. They're small. They'll grow, said Sanu. Are you sure? Yuri is sure, that's enough. Aryam looked at the sprouts for another second. Uncle Sanu. Yes? Is it scary outside? Silence. Yes, he said. But you go out anyway. Yes. Why? Sanu looked at the small sprouts in the dark soil, at the light through the polycarbonate roof, at Yuri's hands adjusting something in the irrigation system. Because there's something worth protecting here. Aryam nodded seriously like an adult. Got up. Ran off. System notification. Day 60 recorded. Current storage status. Capacity. 262 cubic meters. Items stored. 21,840 units. Group. 23 people. Agreements in storage. 23. New notification. A radio signal recorded on a closed channel. Source, 14 kilometers to the northeast. Signal character, organized, repeating, likely human. Content. If anyone hears us, we're in the Yongyeon Shopping Center, second floor. There are 118 of us. Food is running out. Repeat. Sanu stood in the silence of the greenhouse. 118 people. 14 kilometers. He looked at the supply analysis system. The forecast for 23 people showed 510 days. For 140 people, less than 3 months. He closed his eyes. Keeper. That doesn't mean keeping only your own. He opened his eyes, went to find Seung-ho. Seung-ho listened without interrupting. That was his particular trait. While someone was speaking, Seung-ho didn't move. He stood or sat completely still, as if processing information not with his ears but with his whole body. When Sanu finished, a pause. 5 seconds. No, said Seung-ho. Hear me out? No. He raised a hand. Not because I don't care, because of the math. We have 23 people, they have 118. You showed the forecast yourself. 3 months of supplies at that composition. The greenhouse will give radishes in 3 weeks, tomatoes in 2 months. That won't be enough for 140 people, and you know it. Silence. I know, said Sanu. Then why? Sanu sat down, looked at the table for a long time. Because if we don't go, they'll die. 118 people. If we go and take all of them, we die. 23 plus 118. Not necessarily. Seung-ho looked at him. You have a plan. I have the beginning of a plan. Again, the beginning. I always have a beginning, then improvisation. That's not reassuring. And it still works. A long silence. Seung-ho got up, went to the window, looked at the yard where Minsu was fiddling with the generator. Aryam was racing around the perimeter on an imaginary mission. Dojin was helping Yuri drag a steel profile for the greenhouse. Gather everyone, he said finally. Let them decide. I've already decided. You alone don't decide for 23 people, Kim Sanu. A pause. You're right, said Sanu. The council gathered in the main hall at 1900. Sanu spoke briefly. Facts, the signal, the distance, the numbers, the resources, the forecast. Then silence. We can't feed them, said Halmoni. Not rudely, just a fact, in the voice of a person who had lived 60 years and knew how to look at things directly. Not right away, but I'm thinking about something else, said Sanu. About what? 118 people. That's working hands. Builders, doctors, mechanics, farmers. We have 23. We can't develop the base with 23 people to the point of feeding ourselves. But with 140, we can. Silence. It's like an investment, said Minsu. Put in now, get back later. Yes, except if we don't live to get back, we die at the put-in stage. Yes, Sanu repeated. He didn't try to persuade beautifully, just honestly. Lee Dojin raised his hand. Vote? 18 in favor, 3 against, 2 abstained. Seung-ho didn't vote. He looked at the result. All right, he said, then explained the plan. 4 went on the reconnaissance mission. Sanu, Seung-ho, Jisoo, and Cheol. The surgeon insisted himself. He said, if there are 118 people there, there are wounded. I need to know what I'll be dealing with. There was nothing to argue with. Sanu had calculated the route the night before. By map, 14 kilometers. By safe alleyways through yards, bypassing 3 major intersections where in his first life, hordes always stood. 17. They left at 4 o'clock. Before dawn, the darkness helped. On the first 5 kilometers, quiet. Lone zombies, 2 in the first block, 3 at an abandoned cafe, 1 in an underpass. They went around without touching. No point spending bolts on lone ones if you could just go around. At the 6th kilometer, a problem. The intersection Sanu had planned to bypass on the right. They were going left through a park. But the park was occupied, not by a horde, by a group of living people. 5 men at a campfire, small, in a pit, almost no smoke, skillfully made. Weapons visible, 2 with rebar, 1 with a hunting rifle, 2 with knives. Clothing practical, not accidental, organized. Sanu raised his hand. Stop. They lay flat behind bushes. Quietly. Living people are more dangerous than zombies. Anyone who survived the first weeks knows this. Seung-ho lay down beside him, a whisper. Armed. The rifle is serious. I see. Should we go around? Sanu looked at the group. One of the men, the one with the rifle, and stood up, stretched, looked around professionally. Short haircut, straight back, military movements, former military or police. We wait, said Sanu. For what? Let's see who they are. They waited 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, it became clear they weren't looters. Looters don't make campfires in parks and don't keep a lookout. Looters are in a hurry. These weren't in a hurry. They had set up like people who know what they're doing. They talked quietly, yes, words inaudible, but the tone was normal. One was laughing. In an apocalypse, people laugh when they feel relatively safe, or when they have nothing left to lose. Then one of them, young, in a sports jacket, got up and headed into the bushes. Straight in their direction, the toilet, of course. Sanu made the decision quickly, got up, hands visible, empty, stepped out to meet him. The young man stopped, his mouth opened. Quietly, said Sanu, I'm not an enemy. I'm not. His name was Kim Youngjun, 24 years old, education student. This became clear 5 minutes later at the campfire. The other 4 looked at Sanu and his group with tension. The one with the rifle didn't lower it. Where are you going? He asked. To the Yongin shopping center. We heard the signal. Us too, said one of the older men. 2 days ago. Why didn't you go? Have you seen the road? Sanu thought. No. There's a horde there, permanent. 3 streets are blocked, 1 passage, through the shopping center's underground parking. But it's dark and tight and nobody wants to risk it in the dark. Silence. Sanu opened storage, pulled out 6 headlamp flashlights, set them on the ground at the campfire. Do you want to now? Silence. The one with the rifle slowly lowered it. They were now 9. They traveled the rest of the way together. The man with the rifle was named Jeon Il-ho, turned out to be a former police officer. 42 years old. Spoke little, moved correctly. At the 9th kilometer, he came up to Sanu. You prepared? Yes. Before D0? 14 months ahead. A pause. Smart. Another pause. I wanted to. My wife laughed. Said it was paranoia. Sanu didn't reply. John stopped. Didn't come home on the first day. I'm sorry. Yes? He looked ahead. That's why I'm going to the shopping center. There might be someone I know there. Sanu nodded. That's a different reason than survival. That's important too. The shopping center was visible from afar, glass facade, 5 floors, huge parking lot, and a horde. Sanu counted about 300 before he stopped counting. They filled the open space in front of the entrance. Slow, aimless, dense. Good grief, said Youngjun. Where's the underground parking? Sanu asked Joan. Entrance on the north side, 300 meters around. Let's go. The entrance to the parking was blocked by a lowered barrier. The barrier isn't a problem. Under it, fine. Darkness inside, total. 9 flashlights turned on simultaneously. Parking, 3 levels, cars standing, quiet, nobody. Nobody alive. Nobody dead either. Strange, said Seung-ho quietly. Someone cleared this, said John. Look at the marks. On the floor, dried dark stains. A lot of them. Trailing toward the staircase at the far end. Someone had already cleared the parking, which meant the living inside were active, organized. This changed the picture. The staircase led to the first floor of the shopping center. A door at the end, metal, locked from the inside. Sanu knocked. 3 times, pause, 2 times. The signal he had named on the radio. Silence. Then from the other side, 3 times, pause, 2 times. A lock clicked. The door was opened by a man with a hammer in his hand. 50 years old, bald, wearing a construction helmet. He looked at the 9 of them with weapons at the ready. "Who are you?" "We heard your signal," said Sanu. "We came to help." A long silence. "1," said the man. "First, just 1. The rest wait." Sanu turned to his group, nodded, went in alone. Beyond the door, the shopping center. The first floor was barricaded, display cases knocked down, glass removed, replaced by metal shelves lying flat, fastened with cable ties. Professional work, people everywhere. On the second floor, they were looking over the railings. Children, elderly, women and men, faces exhausted but not broken. The man with the hammer led him to a table near the former food court. 3 people were sitting at the table, a woman of about 40, short hair, direct gaze, stethoscope around her neck. A doctor, a man of about 35, thin, glasses, a laptop in front of him, though there was no electricity. He held it out of habit. And another, elderly, gray-haired, military jacket, hands folded on the table. He looked at Sanu calmly. "Sit down," said the elderly man. Sanu sat down. "Did you come alone or with a group?" "With a group. 9 people outside, another 23 at our base." "What is the base?" "A warehouse complex, 4 kilometers to the southwest. Fence, well, generators, greenhouse." A pause. "Greenhouse," repeated the female doctor. 60 days of work, first harvest in 2 weeks. Silence. "Why did you come?" asked the elderly man. "I heard that your food is running out." "And?" "I have food." "How much?" Sanu opened the interface, looked at the supply analysis. "At your numbers, 3 months. With joint production, much longer." "With joint production," repeated the man with the laptop. "You talk like a manager." "I was a logistics worker." "A logistics worker." The elderly man smiled slightly. "And I am a retired colonel. She is Kwan Hana, a pediatrician. He is Pak Jongi, a programmer." "Kim Sanu." "Kim Sanu." The colonel looked at him. "You came to propose a merger." "Yes." "On what terms?" Sanu took a sheet from storage, held it out. The colonel read slowly, then passed it to Hana, then to Jongi. Silence. "You're asking us to accept your rules," said the colonel. "I'm asking us to accept common rules, which protect everyone equally. All decisions are made by the council. Every voice is equal." The colonel looked up. "You understand that we have 118 people, and you have 23? "Yes." "You're giving the majority to us." "Yes." "Why?" Sanu thought. "Because I don't want to command. I want everyone to survive." A long silence. Hana looked at him intently. "Are you telling the truth?" "Yes." "Where did you get so many supplies?" "I prepared." "Everyone says they prepared, but not everyone has 3 months of food for 140 people." A pause. "I have special capabilities," said Sanu. "What kind?" He pulled a can of food out of thin air, set it on the table. All 3 looked at his hand. At the can, at his hand again. "These kind," said Sanu. The move took 3 days. Not because the distance was far, but because 118 people is not a squad. It's a crowd with children, elderly, wounded, frightened. It's things that can't be left behind. It's people who cry when leaving a place they've lived for 2 months, even if it's just a shopping center. Sanu understood this. The colonel, his name was Lee Sunguk, organized people into columns, on his own, without being asked. Military bearing, short commands, no panic. A good man. I'm lucky he's not an enemy. Route. Underground parking, then through yards, then alleyways. Sanu walked in front. Sungho and Joan Ilho on the flanks. Jisoo, rear guard. First column, 40 people. Made it in 1 hour, 40. No contact. Second, 50. Made it in 2 hours. 1 contact, 3 zombies at a building corner. John took down 2 with the rifle. Seung-ho got the third with a knife. Fast, no losses. Third, 28 people. Wounded, elderly children, 2 on stretchers. That took 3.5 hours, and a horde. The horde appeared at the 8th kilometer. Not large, about 80. But the column was moving slowly, people on stretchers can't run, and the horde was coming in from the side, quickly cutting off the side street. Sanu saw this. 28 people. Stretchers. Horde 80 meters away and closing. In his first life, that meant losses. He opened the tactical inventory. Smoke grenades, last 2. Signal flare, 1. Portable speaker, available, but without the drone, it's useless. Think. Seung-ho, he said. I see. We need to slow them. Not kill, and slow. 3 minutes. With what? Sanu looked around. The street, parked cars, an intersection, a cafe with broken windows. The cafe. Min-soo, Sanu called. The mechanic came over quickly. You see the car by the cafe? Red Honda? Yes. Can you start it? If the keys are inside, 30 seconds. If not, 2 minutes. Run! Min-soo was already running. Sanu turned to Seung-ho. When Min-soo starts it, the car goes toward the horde. Without a driver, just goes. How without a driver? Brick on the gas pedal, steering wheel straight, low speed, engine noise, they'll go toward it. A brick. Or a rock. Anything heavy. Seung-ho looked at him for a second. Sometimes I think you're a little crazy. Sometimes it overlaps. The keys were in the ignition. 30 seconds. The engine started. Min-soo placed a rock on the gas pedal, set the steering wheel, opened the door, stepped back. The car moved slowly but steadily, straight toward the horde. The horde heard the engine. The front row stopped, then turned toward the sound. The car drove into the first row, not fast but with mass. Several bodies fell. The rest piled onto the car. The engine stalled. 20 seconds gained, then they'd move on. Smoke grenades, said Sanu. 2 grenades into the passage between the horde and the column. Dense white smoke. Everyone forward. Fast. Quiet isn't necessary. Fast. The column moved. Lee Seung-guk was already driving people forward without words. Just gestures. Military efficiency. The stretchers were carried by 4. Young-jun and 3 unfamiliar men from the shopping center, silently in sync. The horde stirred behind the smoke, but the smoke caused disorientation. 3 minutes. It was enough. When the gates of the base closed behind the last person, Sanu sat down against the wall and simply sat for a minute. Seung-ho stood beside him. No losses. I know. That was a good plan. That was improvisation. You always say improvisation as if it's something bad. Sanu looked up. Because every time it could have gone wrong. But it didn't. So far it didn't. System notification. Group expanded to 141 people. Supply analysis updated. Supply analysis report number 2. Group 141 people. Current food supplies 3,200 kilograms. Forecast at current consumption 30 days 1,640 kilograms minus 1,560 kilograms. 60 days 80 kilograms 72 days. Depletion. Critical threshold reached. Priority red. Food production. Additionally, 141 people recorded on the premises. Of them, medical staff, 3, agronomists/gardeners, 2, builders/mechanics, 7, former military/police, 4, children under 14, 23, elderly 60 plus, 11, other able-bodied 91. Sanu looked at the number. 72 days, then closed the report. Got up. Went to find Lee Urian, the second agronomist, then Lee Seung-guk, then Cheol, 72 days. Which means I have 72 days to make it so we don't need my supplies. We begin. The next 2 weeks, the base changed. Not gradually, fast, because 91 able-bodied people is no joke. Yuri and the new agronomist, his name was Seo Chanil, a former biology teacher who had kept his own garden for 20 years, divided up the territory. The second warehouse, greenhouse. The open yard at the south wall and open-air beds. Radishes and leafy greens don't need a greenhouse, they're fast, said Chanil. And he was right. The builders under Min-soo's direction erected a second fence, internal. Not against zombies, against outsiders. 2 zones, residential and production. Colonel Lee Sung-guk organized a watch system. 4 posts, 3-hour shifts, never fewer than 6 combat-ready people. Cheol and Hana set up a medical station in the former office. 2 operating tables, supplies from storage, sterility as far as possible. Pak Jonggi, the programmer, asked for solar panels. "Why do you need solar panels?" Sanu asked. "I have an idea about radio communication. If we establish a network, we can coordinate with other survivors, share information, know where the hordes are, where the resources are." Sanu looked at him. In his first life, nobody had communication. We operated blind. "Solar panels," said Sanu. "How many do you need?" 4 or 5, and an inverter." Sanu opened storage. "Solar panels? 3 panels, 200 watts each. Inverter? 1. Section tools, row 4. 3 panels and an inverter," said Sanu. "Will that be enough?" Jonggi looked at him. "You stockpiled solar panels." "Just in case." "It'll be enough." On the 15th day after the move, they convened the first large council. 141 people in the main hall. Standing, sitting on crates, on the floor. Loud, then quieter. Sanu spoke standing. "Food for 72 days. The greenhouse will give the first harvest in 2 weeks. The open beds, in a month. That's not enough." A pause. "We need resources from outside. We have seeds. We need land. In the yards and on the roofs of neighboring buildings, we can set up beds. This requires excursions, regular, organized." "That's dangerous," said someone from the crowd. "Yes," Sanu agreed. "That's dangerous. Starving is also dangerous. I prefer the former. There I can influence the situation." Silence. "Volunteers," said Colonel Sung-guk. "Only volunteers. No one is coerced." 42 hands went up. Sanu looked at those hands. In his first life, people hid. Were afraid, refused. Something had changed, or something had always been in people. They just needed someone to say, "Here's a goal, here's a plan, let's go." Day 88. Sanu remembered it from his first life. In his first life, it was the day of his death. He woke up at 5 o'clock, lay for a long time looking at the warehouse ceiling. "Today I was supposed to die. With a bag of buckwheat in a supermarket. Alone. Instead, I'm here." He got up, went out into the yard. The base was alive. The lookout on his post nodded to him. From the open beds, Yuri was already coming back with an armful of leaf lettuce in gloves with dirt on her knees. From the medical station, Hana's voice examining someone. Aryum ran past purposefully. "Aryum." "Yes?" "Where to?" "Yonggi Ajahosi said there'll be a signal today. I want to listen." Sanu watched her go. Communication. Yonggi had set up the radio network faster than he'd promised. The radio station had been working since yesterday. Not powerful, but sufficient. Yonggi had picked up 3 signals within a 30-kilometer radius. A group to the north, 20 people, a hospital, medical staff, no food. A group to the west, 45 people, a factory, fuel available, no doctors. And a third signal is quiet, barely audible with interference. "There are many of us, more than 300. We're on the Sung Kyung Kwan University campus. We have organization, we have resources. But we want to talk to those who make decisions. Not just to survive, to build. If you think the same way, reach out on Channel 7. We repeat." Sanu listened to this 3 times. "What do you think?" Jonggi asked. "I think more than 300 and we have organization is either very good or very bad. Or both." "Yes." Sanu looked at the radio. 3 groups. The hospital, doctors we need. The factory, fuel we need. The campus, unknown. In his first life, nobody united. Everyone held on to their own, died one by one. Maybe that was exactly why. He picked up the radio. "Channel 7, he said to Jonggi. He switched over. Sanu pressed the transmit button. "This is Base South. We hear you. We have 141 people, food, medical staff, a greenhouse, communications. We think the same way. Ready to talk. Over." Static, a second, 2. Then a voice, female. Clear, confident. "Base South, this is Sung Kyung Kwan campus. We hear you clearly." A pause. "We've been waiting for someone like you for a long time." System notification. Day 88 recorded. Host has survived the date of death in the previous timeline. Unlocked final storage function. Storage final function. Transfer of right. The host can designate an heir of the storage. One person who will gain access to the storage in the event of the host's death. The items will not disappear. The agreements will not disappear. Everything will be preserved. The heir is chosen once. Cannot be changed. Sanu looked at the text for a long time. The final function. I can designate someone. And then if I'm gone, everything remains. They all remain. He closed the interface, got up, left the radio room. The yard was alive. People were working, talking. Children were running. Aryam was laughing at something with Yongjun. Halmoni was handing out tea to someone from a large thermos. Sungho stood at the gate, hands behind his back, looking at the street, keeping watch. Who? He knew the answer. He just wasn't ready to admit it yet. In the evening, he found Seungho at the gate. Stood beside him. They were silent for a minute. Remember what you said on the first day? Sanu asked. I said a lot of things on the first day. You alone don't decide for 23 people. I remember. You were right. Sungho looked at him. Where are you going with this? Sanu took a small item from storage. Held it out. A flash drive. Ordinary, black, 32 gigabytes. What is this? Everything is on there. The full storage catalog. The location of all reserve caches. A guide to the system. Copies of all agreements. Sungho looked at the flash drive. In case something happens to me, said Sanu. And one more thing. What? I need an heir to the storage. The system allows one time. A long silence. You're serious? Yes. Why me? Sanu thought about the answer. Because you were the first to stop me when I was about to make a decision for everyone. Because you think about the people, not about winning. And because you're the only one who says no to me when it's needed. Silence. Seungho looked at the flash drive in his hand. This doesn't mean I agree to die for you. No, it means that if I die, you won't die along with the supplies. A pause. All right, said Seungho finally. Slipped the flash drive into his pocket. Now go to sleep. Tomorrow, negotiations with the campus. I know. And Sanu. Yes? Day 88. Seungho looked at him. You talked about your first life? Didn't explain, but I understood. Silence. Congratulations, said Sungho simply. He turned around, walked to his post. Sanu stood alone at the gate. Quiet outside. Somewhere in the distance, a hum. There's always a hum. Probably there always will be now. Day 88. I'm alive. 141 people are alive. Tomorrow, negotiations. Then the hospital to the north. Then the factory to the west. Then the campus and 300 people with organization and unknown goals. Then something else. Always something else. He opened storage, looked at the catalog. 262 cubic meters. 141 agreements, 141 people. Closed it. The work doesn't end. Her name was Jang Soa, 38 years old. Former professor of sociology at Sungkyunkwan University. Voice even, without extra words, without panic. That kind of voice belongs to people who are either very calm by nature or have seen enough to stop being afraid. They spoke over the radio 3 times before meeting in person. The first conversation, verification. She asked for facts. How many people? Where is the base? What resources? Sanu answered honestly. Not everything, but honestly. She did too. Sungkyunkwan campus. 3 buildings, enclosed grounds, 314 people. Food? Enough for 2 months. Water, their own rainwater collection system plus a well. Medical staff, 6 people, 2 of them surgeons. 2 surgeons, we have 1. The second conversation, values. She asked directly, how do you treat people who cannot work? Children, the elderly, the sick? Sanu answered, they eat first. A pause on the other end, then, good. The third conversation, an agreement on the meeting. She wants to meet on neutral ground, Sanu said at the council. Not at ours and not at theirs. In the middle. That's standard negotiation tactics, said Colonel Sunguk. Gives no advantage to either side. I know, which means she thinks like a negotiator, not a survivalist. Or both. Who goes? Sanu looked at the table. Me, Sung-ho, the colonel if he agrees. Sung-guk nodded. And one more person. Who? Halmoni. Silence. She's an elderly woman, someone said. Exactly, said Sanu. If they see that we're bringing an elderly woman to the negotiations, they understand that we're not expecting an ambush. It's a signal of trust. The colonel looked at him with the expression Sanu had already learned to read. Logical, but strange. Is Halmoni willing? Halmoni sat in the corner with a mug of tea. I've already packed kimbap for everyone, she said. When do we leave? The neutral point they chose was a schoolyard halfway between the two bases. Open space, good visibility from all sides. A smart choice, no one can approach unseen. Jang Soa came with 3 people. Herself, short, in a dark blue jacket, hair up, looking straight ahead without a smile. Not hostile, just assessing. With her, a young man with a radio, a liaison. A middle-aged woman with a notebook, taking notes. And a tall man in a military vest without insignia who stood slightly behind and constantly watched his surroundings. Security. Soa saw Halmoni. For a second, something changed in her face. Not a smile, but softer. Did you bring kimbap? She asked. Enough for everyone, said Halmoni seriously. They sat down at school desks right in the yard. The negotiations lasted 2 hours. Jang Soa spoke clearly without embellishment. She had a hand-drawn map, detailed. 3 districts, 9 groups of survivors she knew about, horde routes, resource points. Sanu looked at the map. In his first life, nobody made maps. Nobody gathered information systematically. She had done this in 3 months with 300 people. Where does the data come from, he asked. Scouts, we have 8 people specifically for that. A pause. We lost 2. I'm sorry. Yes? She looked at the map. But without them, we're blind. Better to see and pay the price than not to see at all? Colonel Seongguk looked at her attentively. Are you military? A sociologist. You think like military? Soa raised her eyes. I've been studying the survival structures of societies for 20 years. Turns out it's practically applicable. By the end of the second hour, there were 3 points of an agreement on the table. First, resource exchange. Their medical staff to us once a week. Our food supplies to them partially monthly. Second, a unified intelligence network. Data on hordes, routes, resource points, shared. Third, and disputed. Merger of bases, said Soa. Not now, in 3 months, if everything is working. What does merger mean? Asked the colonel. 1 management structure, 1 council, shared resources. 450 people under 1 council, said Seongguk. That's not survival anymore, that's a state. Soa looked at him. Yes, exactly. Silence. Sanu thought. In his first life, there had been nothing like this. Only fragments, groups, war over resources. She's proposing something that never existed. This is either the best thing that can happen, or a trap. 3 months, he said. Let's see how the first and second work, then the third. Soa nodded. Fair. She took out a sheet. Held it out. Sanu read it. Signed it. Pulled it from storage. Agreement number 142 placed. They were leaving when Soa called after him. Kim Sanu. He turned around. My scout saw something to the west, 3 days ago. What? An organized group, not survivors in the usual sense. Military vehicles, several trucks, an armored car, moving methodically, clearing blocks, collecting resources. Silence. How many of them? Unknown, but they move like a team, not like a gang. Sanu remembered the shopping center. Those 3 who had come for his base. Different, but the same principle. Thank you, he said. Keep your people safe, said Soa. The system woke him at 2:34 at night. Not with a sound, just a flash of the interface before his closed eyes. System notification, emergency. Recorded. Reserve cache number 2 compromised. Location, warehouse on Taehawk Street, 14. 2.3 kilometers to the northwest. Status, items in cache inaccessible. External interference. Probable cause, physical destruction of the storage point. Sanu sat in the darkness. Cache number 2, It contained 400 liters of diesel, 80 kilograms of canned goods, medications for 2 months for 10 people, 3 crossbows with ammunition. A reserve in case of losing the base. Someone found the warehouse, or something happened there. An explosion, a fire. He got up, got dressed, went to the lookout. Quiet? Quiet, said the lookout. Only to the northwest there was some kind of glow an hour ago. I thought it was a distant fire. The glow. Where exactly? The lookout showed the direction. Taehak Street. Sanu stood still for a second, then went to wake Seung-ho. Cash, said Seung-ho when Sanu explained. Found by chance or did they know? Don't know. If they knew, then someone was watching you, saw you going there. I went there once at night, 3 weeks ago. Which means they were watching. Silence. Or it's a coincidence, said Sanu. Do you believe that yourself? A pause. No. Seung-ho got up, started getting dressed. Let's go look. There are 2 of us. 3. From the darkness appeared Yeon Il-ho. He was on duty, had heard the conversation. I'm coming with you. They left at 3:10. 3 people. Quietly. The darkness worked for them. Taehak Street was 20 minutes away. They moved fast without stops. Sanu knew the route by heart. He had chosen the 3 reserve caches himself, walked them on foot, memorized every alleyway. On approach, a smell. Burning, faint, residual, meaning the fire had been several hours ago, already burned out. Sanu raised his hand. Stop. Looked around the corner. The warehouse, a 1-story building, metal gates. The gates open, forced, not opened. Inside, darkness. Outside, 2 people. Not zombies. People. Standing by a small truck with a flatbed, smoking, talking quietly. Weapons, automatic rifles, real ones. Here it is. Sanu looked at the truck. At the emblem on its side, he didn't make it out right away in the darkness. Then he did. A blue triangle. Inside, a stylized letter K. I don't know this sign. It didn't exist in my first life, which means this is something that changed. He stepped back, quietly. Showed Seung-ho, 2 people, weapons, truck. Seung-ho nodded. John too. A gesture, we leave. They returned to the base at 4:40. The council was gathered at 5:30. Not everyone, just the key people. Seung-ho, Colonel Seung-guk, Min-soo, Jeon. Sanu told them. Blue triangle with K, repeated the colonel. Never seen it before. Me neither. Yonggi, said Seung-guk. Can you reach Soa? Right now? Try, said Jonggi. The radio crackled. Then Soa's voice. She hadn't been sleeping or woke up instantly without sleepy hoarseness. Blue triangle with K, she said when Sanu described the sign. Yes, I know them. Who? A pause. Slightly longer than needed to answer a simple question. They call themselves the root structure. In English, core structure, abbreviated CSK, is for Korean. The triangle is a symbol of hierarchy. Another pause. My scouts have been observing them for 2 weeks. These are the ones I saw to the west. What do they want? What everyone wants. Resources, territory, people. Her voice was even. Only they don't ask. They take. Silence in the room. How many of them? Asked the colonel. By the latest data, about 80, armed, organized. They have someone with military training at the head. Do they know about us? A long silence. Now they do, said Soa. They came on the 105th day. Not at night, in the morning, openly, without trying to conceal themselves. 3 trucks stopped at the base gates at 9:17. From the lead truck stepped a man, tall, about 50, in a tactical vest. Confident walk, calm face. He stood before the gates, didn't shout, just waited. Sanu looked from the roof. 1, said Seung-ho beside him. The rest are in the trucks. How many? Sanu looked at the vehicles. Trucks sealed, beds covered with tarpaulin. Don't know. A pause. But he came to talk. Otherwise he wouldn't have stepped out alone. Or he wants you to think that. Either way, we have to go out. Seung-ho looked at him. You understand this could be a trap. I understand. And you're going anyway. If I don't go out, they'll come in. Better talk than a storm. Sanu went out alone. The gates opened 1 meter, enough for one person. Behind him, Jeon Il-ho at the gap with the rifle. On the roof, Jisoo with the bow. The man looked at him. Kim Sanu, how do you know my name? I know a lot. Voice calm, almost friendly. My name is Ko Jinho. I lead the root structure. What do you want? Direct, no ceremony. Ko Jinho smiled slightly, not warmly, assessingly. I want what you have. A pause. But I didn't come to take. I came to make a deal. Speak. You're feeding 140 people. Your supplies are running out. My people have been watching your excursions for the last 2 weeks. You're actively looking for food. He folded his hands. I have what you're lacking. Grain, a lot. A warehouse in the industrial district, untouched. I'm prepared to share. In exchange for what? In exchange for your storage. Silence. Not forever, Ko added. You stay, just under our structure. Resources shared. We decide where what goes. You decide. Yes, we do. We have more people, more weapons. It's logical. You have 80 people, said Sanu. We, together with Sungkyunkwan campus, almost 500. A pause. Ko's expression shifted slightly. Not fear, but recalculation. Sungkyunkwan campus, he repeated. You merged. 2 days ago, said Sanu. That was a lie. They had merged 2 weeks ago, but Ko didn't know. Or did know. Then the conversation is different, said Ko slowly. Yes, different. Sanu looked at him steadily. You came with a proposal. Here's mine. You and your people join us on common terms. A council, an equal voice, resources shared, no hierarchies except those chosen by the community. You're offering me to become one of 100, said Ko. One of 500, Sanu corrected. Silence. I'll think about it, said Ko finally. All right, a pause. While you're thinking, 200 meters from my base, your truck's over there. Ko looked at him. You're not afraid of me? I am, said Sanu, but that doesn't change the terms. The trucks moved 200 meters back. Sanu returned to the base, closed the gates. Sungho was waiting for him. Will he agree? No. Why? Because people who build hierarchies don't know how to live without a top. Which means a storm. Maybe, not right away. He's calculating. 80 against 500 is unfavorable. But he doesn't know exactly how many of us there are and how we're armed. He'll be gathering information. How much time do we have? Sanu thought. A day, 2 at most. Then we need Soa. Already called her, she's on her way. Soa arrived at 1400 with 20 people. An expanded council, Sanu, Seungho, Colonel Seungguk, Soa, Jeon Il-ho, Minsu. Map on the table, Soa's map, the detailed handwritten one. 80 people, said Soa. Of those, realistically combat ready, 30 at most. The rest are support, drivers, auxiliaries. Weapons? Automatic rifles, definitely. Saw at least 12. The rest unknown. And us? Sanu opened the combat catalog of storage. Crossbows, 9. Bows, 7. Rifles, 3. 1 with John. Knives and blades with all combat ready. A pause. Construction foam, smoke grenades, the last reserve of signal flares. Silence. We outnumber them, said the colonel, but they're better armed. Which means we can't allow direct combat, said Sanu. How do we prevent it if they come? They won't storm a base with 500 people. Sanu looked at the map. They'll try to cut us off from resources, block the exits, starve us out. We have 72 days of food, said Seungho. Less now. With the campus, 50. 50 days against 80 armed people, said Jeon. That's not in our favor. Silence. Sanu looked at the map. The industrial district. The warehouse with grain. Ko said it himself. True or bait? If true, can't, we need the grain. If bait, we can't go there. But if we can go neither there nor to Ko, then 50 days will become 40, then 30. We need a scout, said Sanu. To the industrial district. Check the warehouse. If there's grain, take it. Tonight, while Ko is waiting for an answer. You yourself? Asked Seungho. No, I can't. A pause. If I die, the storage passes to you. But at a critical moment, the storage can't be risked. Then who? Silence. Me? Said Jeon Ilo. And me, said Yongjun. He was sitting in the corner, listening. I know the industrial district. Grew up there. Sanu looked at them. 4 maximum, at night. 3 hours there and back. If the warehouse exists, you take as much as you can carry. If it's a trap, you leave. No heroics. Understood, said Jeon. Signal every 20 minutes on the closed channel. If no signal for 30 minutes, we move out. The night was long. Sanu sat by the radio. Seung-ho beside him. They were silent. 2000, signal. Departed normally. 2020, signal. First block clear. 2040, signal. Approaching industrial area. 2100, signal. Warehouse exists. Large. Grain is real. Sacks many. Nobody inside. 2120, signal. Loading. 8 sacks between 4. Leaving. Sanu exhaled. 2140, signal. Problem. A pause. Then John's voice, quiet and even. Tails, 2 of them, following. Not zombies. Sanu was already standing. Seung-ho, Minsu, we go out. To meet them. You said the storage can't be risked? The storage can't be risked. Neither can people. He was already walking to the gates. They're carrying grain on their backs. They're slow. The 2 behind them will catch up. Seung-ho didn't argue, followed. They met at the 6th block. Jeon and Yongjun with 2 others. Loads on their backs, quick step, out of breath. Behind them in the darkness, 2 people. Distance, about 70 meters, closing. Loads, here, said Sanu. Minsu, you take them. The mechanic took the sacks. Jeon turned around. I saw their faces. Young, 20, maybe less. Did Ko send them? Probably. They were watching the warehouse. 70 meters had become 50. Smoke grenade, said Sanu. The last one. I know. The smoke settled across the alley. White, dense, nearly opaque. The 2 behind it stopped. Through the smoke, silhouettes, not moving. We leave, said Sanu. They entered the base at 2234. 8 sacks of grain, half a ton, not much, but it exists. Sanu stood in the yard watching Minsu and Yongjun carry the sacks to the warehouse. John came over. They saw us, he said. 4 of us. Faces. I know. Ko will know we took the grain. I know. That speeds up his decision. I know. Silence. You're calm, said John. No, said Sanu. I just know how not to show it. They came at dawn. 4:51 in the morning. The lookout at the north post was the first to see movement. 3 trucks from the north, 2 from the east. Foot soldiers along the southern fence. Not 80. More. He called someone else over in a single day. Sanu looked from the roof. Counted. The system flickered. System notification. Approaching force recorded. 140 to 160 people. Armed. Host. Base south. 141 people. Armament. Critically insufficient for direct combat. Analysis. Direct defense impossible at this ratio. System recommendation, tactical retreat or negotiations. Sanu dismissed the notification. Tactical retreat means abandoning the base. The greenhouse. The well. Everything they'd built. Negotiations. Ko had already heard the terms, didn't accept them, which means a third option. He called Soa on the radio. Soa. They came. 140, maybe more. I see the signal. My people are already moving. How many? 120. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. We need to hold for 20 minutes. Sanu gathered all combat ready. 37 people. On the roof, Jisoo with the bow and 5 with crossbows. Task, don't kill, shoot at legs, slow them down. At the gates, Seung-ho, Jeon, Dojun, Sungguk with the main group. Task, the gates don't open. If the gates fall, first line of defense inside. The rest, the inner yard, civilians. Halmoni was gathering children in the far building. Cheol was setting up the medical station. Silently, quickly, by now out of habit. Ariam was standing at the entrance to the medical station. Sanu saw her. Ariam. Inside. I'm a runner. Communication isn't needed right now. Inside. Uncle Sanu? Ariam. He crouched in front of her. Looked her in the face. Halmoni is in there. She's scared. She needs someone beside her. Aryam looked at him. 8 years old and a gaze that understands it's being told an untruth, but accepts it because that's what's needed. All right, she said. She went inside. The first trucks stopped at the gates at 4:58. Megaphone, Ko's voice. Kim Sanu, last chance. Open the gates, no one will be hurt. Silence from their side. Sanu, you're a smart man. You know you can't hold. Sanu stood at the gates from the inside. Didn't answer. 18 minutes. Break them, said Ko's voice. A blow to the gates. Heavy, metallic. A truck with its bumper. The gates held. A second blow. A third. On the fourth, the right hinge began to crack. Jisoo on the roof. An arrow downward into the front tire of the truck. The tire burst. The vehicle tilted. Another truck from the east rammed the fence sideways. The metal bent. East! Shouted the lookout. 6 people ran to the east wall. 15 minutes. The east wall held. But at the south, different. Foot soldiers with ladders. 4 ladders simultaneously. South! Shouted Seung-ho. Sanu was already running. The south wall, 3 were climbing. Jisoo from the roof took down 1. 2 had already climbed over. Sanu opened the combat catalog. Instantly, a knife in the right hand, crossbow in the left. The first, young, frightened, with a rebar. Swung. Sanu didn't block and stepped aside. The rebar missed. The flat of the knife to the temple. Not to kill, to stun. He fell. The second, more experienced. A knife on him. Looking correctly, stance correct. Combat trained. Stop, said Sanu. The man didn't stop. A step forward. Sanu raised the crossbow. I don't want to kill you. I don't care, said the man. A throw, fast, low. Sanu fired, bolt in the shoulder. Not in the head, not in the chest, in the shoulder. The man cried out, went down on one knee. Stay down, said Sanu. The man stayed down. 12 minutes. The north gates of the hinge snapped. The gates warped a half-meter gap. They were squeezing through. Seung-ho and Jeon were holding with their bodies, braced in the opening, shoulders against the metal. Sanu, shouted Seung-ho. Construction foam, the last canister. Sanu ran over, inserted the nozzle into the gap in the gates, pressed. The foam went into the hinge mechanism, into the gap, into the space between the panels. It hardened. 4 seconds, 8, 20. The gap closed. The gate stood, warped but intact. From the other side, blows. The gates didn't yield. How long will it hold? Asked Seung-ho. About 5 minutes. 7 if we're lucky. 10 minutes. We need 10. Then a sound from the south. Not blows, not shouts, gunshots, not toward them, toward the attackers. Sanu ran up to the roof. From the southwest, movement. Not Ko's trucks, different vehicles. Fast, varied, cars, a minibus, a pickup with people in the bed. A flag on the lead vehicle, white with a red circle. Sungkyunkwan campus, SOA. The fight, if you could call it a fight, lasted 14 minutes. Not a massacre, not a slaughter. SOA had arrived with numerical superiority and demonstratively 120 people, visible, loud. Not an attack, a show of force. Ko saw this from the truck. A pause. Long. Megaphone. Ko's voice with a different intonation. Stand down. The movement around the base stopped. Stand down, he repeated. They met at the gates at 5:47. Dawn was only just beginning. Gray, cold. Ko, Soa, Sanu. 3 stood in the open space between the vehicles. Ko looked at Soa. Professor. Ko Jinho, she said. You know each other? Sanu asked quietly. He was my student, said Soa. 15 years ago. Silence. Ko looked at her for a long time. You always said that power structures hold together through trust, he said finally. Yes? I thought that was naive. I know. You wrote a course paper about it. Silence. You gotta see, she added. Something changed in Ko's face. Almost not a smile. I could have held the territory by force, he said. You could, Soa agreed. Not for long. Why not for long? Because people who are held by force leave at the first opportunity. A pause. Or they kill you in your sleep. A long silence. Ko looked at Sanu. Your offer, a council, an equal voice. Yes? My 80 people. Everyone who wants to, that comes in, on common terms. Sanu took out a sheet. Here are the terms. Ko took the sheet, read slowly, looked up. You store the word given by people in the literal sense. Yes? And the agreement can't be violated? Technically it can. Practically there's no reason to. Violating an agreement here means exclusion. Alone, without resources. Outside. A pause. That's sufficiently harsh, said Ko. That's sufficiently fair. Ko looked at the sheet for another second, then signed. System notification. Agreement number 143. Ko Jinho and CS Group placed. Group expanded to 221 people. Supply analysis updated. Supply analysis updated. Accounting for grain from the warehouse, the greenhouse, the open beds, and CS Group resources. The forecast has been revised. At current production and consumption, supply depletion not projected within a 90-day horizon. First sustainable production, 34 days. Sanu closed the notification. He stood at the gates of his base. Dawn was rising over the city, real, with a red edge at the horizon. Somewhere in the distance, a hum. There's always a hum. Soa came over, stood beside him. 221 people, she said quietly. Yes. Did you think that was possible 3 months ago? Sanu thought. 3 months ago, I woke up in my apartment with a storage system and a sheet of paper saying, 14 months. No, he said. I didn't think so. And now you do? A pause. Now I think it's only the beginning. Soa nodded. 3 signals we haven't followed up on yet. The hospital to the north, the factory to the west. And others we don't know about. Yes. A pause. And those who don't want to unite. Ko wasn't the last of that kind. No, not the last. Silence. Will we manage? She asked. Sanu looked at the dawn. In my first life, I died with a bag of buckwheat, alone, on the 88th day. Now it's the 106th. 221 people, a greenhouse, a well, communications, agreements in storage that can't be burned. And still tomorrow there will be something new, something I didn't know in my first life, something I didn't account for. I don't know, he said honestly. Soa smiled slightly. An honest answer. The only one I have. From the yard, voices. People were coming out looking at the dawn. Hamoni was already handing out tea, unclear when she'd managed it. Aryam was running across the yard toward Yongjun. Seongo stood by the wall, hands behind his back, watching the gates, still on guard. Keeper? Sanu opened the interface. Looked at the catalog one last time. 262 cubic meters. 143 agreements, 221 people. Closed it. The work continues. Somewhere to the north. The city. Somewhere in the city. A hospital with 20 medical staff and no food. Somewhere to the west. A factory with fuel and 45 people without doctors. Somewhere further. Signals not yet caught. Groups not yet found. People who don't yet know that there's a place they can come to. And hordes. Always hordes. And those who don't want to negotiate. And those who want to, but don't know how. Dawn was rising. Day 107 was beginning.